the ICU never slept. It breathed. Slow. Mechanical. Precise. Monitors pulsed in steady rhythms, each beep a reminder that somewhere between life and death, time was being negotiated. The air carried that sharp antiseptic scent mixed with something heavier, fear, hope, and the quiet desperation of families waiting for miracles that medicine could not always promise. Inside this controlled chaos, she moved like certainty. Maya Carter. For 6 years, this floor had been her world. At 31, she wasn't the loudest nurse. She wasn't the most decorated. But when things went wrong, and they always did, she was the one people called. When a vein collapsed and panic started rising, they called Maya. When a patient coded at 3:17 a.m. and hands began to shake, they called Maya. When a family broke down in the hallway and needed someone steady enough to hold them together, they called Maya. Because Maya Carter didn't break. She absorbed pressure the way the ICU absorbed noise, quietly, efficiently, without drawing attention. And today was no different. Except for one thing. She was 7 months pregnant. The strain was there if you looked closely enough. The subtle shift in how she stood. The way her hand occasionally pressed against the small of her back when no one was watching. The dull ache that crept in around hour 4 of her 12-hour shift and stayed with her like an uninvited guest. But she never complained. Never slowed down. Between patients, she would pause, just for a second, rest her hand gently over her stomach, take a controlled breath, and keep moving. Because on this floor, hesitation had consequences. And Maya Carter didn't allow consequences. Room 4 needs a line reset, a voice called from the station. I've got it, Maya replied, already moving. No hesitation. No wasted motion. Competence, without announcement. That was her language. What her coworkers didn't know, what no one in that building knew, was that Maya Carter's life hadn't always been this controlled. She didn't talk about where she grew up. Didn't mention family. Didn't share stories from before the hospital. Whenever conversations drifted too close to anything personal, she would smile, warm, polite, distant, and redirect. Not because she didn't trust them. But because some lives were better left unspoken. Some connections were safer buried. And Maya had built this life very carefully. Shift by shift. Patient by patient. Choice by choice. A life that was clean. Earned. Normal. Exactly the way she wanted it. What no one realized was how fragile that normal really was. Because somewhere beyond the walls of that hospital, in a world Maya had chosen to leave behind, there existed a name that carried weight far beyond money, status, or authority. A name that didn't appear on hospital records. Didn't attend charity galas. Didn't exist in polite conversation. Sebastian Vale. A man who moved through the city like something unseen but ever present. Not loud. Not public. Not careless. Precise. Controlled. And when necessary, unstoppable. Years ago, Maya had made a decision. She had looked at that world, the power, the danger, the invisible wars, and she had walked away from it. Not out of fear. But out of choice. I just want to be normal, she had said once. And for years. She was. Sebastian honored that. He stayed away. Watched from a distance. Protected without interfering. Because some promises are absolute. And peace, real peace, requires distance from the things that threaten it. But peace has a weakness. It only works until something decides to break it. Back in the ICU, Maya adjusted in 4 line with steady hands, her focus absolute. The patient's vitals stabilized under her care, the monitor settling into a rhythm that meant, for now, everything was okay. Controlled. Contained. Exactly how she liked it. For a moment, the world held steady. No chaos. No disruption. Just the quiet, fragile balance of a system working exactly as it should. But balance is never permanent. And somewhere, just beyond those double doors at the end of the hallway, something was about to walk in and change everything. The double doors slammed open. Not gently. Not respectfully. Violently. Every head in the ICU turned at once. The rhythm of machines didn't stop, but something else did. Conversations died mid-sentence. Movement slowed. Even the air felt like it tightened, reacting to a presence that didn't belong. He walked in like he owned the building. Logan Mercer. Tailored suit. Sharp lines. Controlled arrogance. The kind of man who didn't ask for attention, he took it. Every step carried expectation, not uncertainty. Behind him, his assistant struggled to keep up, pressing a folded cloth against Logan's hand. A small cut. Barely noticeable. But Logan Mercer didn't do minor. I need a doctor. Now. His voice sliced through the unit, loud enough to override machines, sharp enough to demand obedience. Not a request. A command. A young doctor, Daniel Brooks, moved quickly toward him, hand slightly raised, voice cautious but firm. Sir, this is critical care. Your injury looks minor. The ER is. Logan didn't let him finish. He grabbed Daniel by the coat and shoved him aside like an inconvenience. The entire floor froze. Power had just made its entrance. Logan's eyes scanned the unit, not with concern, but with selection. Beds. Patients. Staff. He wasn't seeing people. He was seeing options. I don't repeat myself, he said coldly. Get me someone who knows what they're doing. No apology. No hesitation. Just expectation. Rules didn't apply here. Not to him. And as he stepped deeper into the ICU, crossing lines no one else would dare cross, the balance that Maya had spent years protecting started to crack. Maya stepped out of room 6. Not rushed. Not alarmed. Controlled. She had heard the voice. The disruption. The shift in the air that told her something, or someone, had entered the ICU without understanding what this place demanded. Her eyes landed on Logan Mercer. She took in everything in a single glance, the suit, the posture, the assistant, the entitlement. And then she made her decision. She walked forward and stopped directly in his path. No hesitation. No introduction. Just presence. Logan slowed. Not because he was unsure. But because he was surprised. People didn't step in front of him. They moved out of the way. His gaze dropped slightly, scanning her like he was trying to place her value. Scrubs. No title. No visible authority. Dismissible. Do you know who I am? He asked, voice lowering into something colder. It wasn't a question. It was a warning. Maya didn't flinch. That's not relevant, she said calmly. You can't be here. Simple. Direct. Final. A flicker of irritation crossed Logan's face. I donated $4 million to this hospital, he said, each word deliberate. I decide where I go. Maya held his gaze. Steady. Unmoved. That may be true, she replied, but you're still not coming through this hallway. Silence. Not empty silence, charged silence. The kind that builds just before something breaks. Behind them, staff watched without moving. No one stepped in. No one spoke. The moment had drawn a line, and everyone could feel it. Logan took a step closer. Close enough to make it personal. You're a nurse, he said, the word edged with quiet contempt. You don't make decisions at this level. Maya didn't step back. On this floor, she said softly, I do. That was it. Not loud. Not aggressive. But absolute. And in that moment, Ego met resistance. Control met refusal. And Logan Mercer was no longer being obeyed. Something broke. Not loudly. Not all at once. But visibly. The control Logan Mercer had been holding on to, the polished restraint, the calculated dominance, fractured into something sharper. Colder. More dangerous. His hand tightened around the card holder. Then dropped. Slowly. Deliberately. "Do you understand what you're doing?" he asked. Maya didn't answer. She didn't need to. Because the answer was already standing in front of him. Unmoved. Unimpressed. Unafraid. And that was unacceptable. The shift happened in a second. One step forward. One flash of anger. And then the sound. Sharp. Violent. Wrong. It cracked through the ICU like something that didn't belong in a place built to save lives. His hand connected with her face. Full force. Maya's head snapped to the side. The impact echoed louder than it should have, as if the walls themselves rejected what had just happened. The clipboard slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a hollow clatter. For a split second, everything stopped. She stumbled back, catching herself against the edge of the station. Instinct took over instantly, both hands moved to her stomach, protecting, shielding, holding. Her eyes closed. Just for a moment. But that moment said everything. The room fell into silence. Not quiet. Silence. The kind that follows something irreversible. Priya Shah stood frozen, both hands covering her mouth. Daniel didn't move. The security guard near the elevator held his radio, but said nothing. No one stepped forward. No one spoke. Because power had just drawn a line. And everyone chose safety over truth. Logan adjusted his cuff like nothing had happened. Calm. Composed. Untouched by consequence. "Now," he said coldly, "we're done talking." And in that moment, the injustice wasn't just the slap. It was the silence that followed it. The silence didn't last. It shifted. Footsteps approached, measured, confident, authoritative. Dr. Harrison Cole. Chief of Medicine. A man known for calm under pressure. For making the right call when everything was on the line. For protecting both patients and the people who cared for them. He walked into the scene, took in the details. Maya steadying herself against the counter. Logan Mercer standing composed, untouched. The staff frozen in place. And then he made his decision. In less than 3 seconds. He chose power. "Mr. Mercer," Dr. Cole said, his voice smooth, almost apologetic as he extended his hand. "I'm very sorry for the inconvenience. Let's get you taken care of immediately." Maya looked at him. Not shocked. Not confused. Just still. Because in that moment, she understood exactly what was happening. Dr. Cole didn't look at her. Not once. Logan rolled his shoulders slightly, settling back into control like nothing had occurred. "Your nurse was obstructive," he said. "Aggressive. I handled it." Dr. Cole nodded. No questions. No hesitation. No investigation. Just acceptance. Like the truth didn't matter, only who was speaking it. The red mark on Maya's face was still visible. Ignored. The witnesses stood 10 feet away. Unheard. The cameras above them blinked quietly. Unchecked. Dr. Cole finally turned to her. And his voice changed. Flat. Cold. Final. "I'm going to have to let you go," he said. Effective immediately. "Surrender your badge and clear your locker." No warning. No defense. No chance. The words didn't hit like a shock. They landed like confirmation. Because deep down, she had already seen it coming the moment he walked in and chose not to see her. 2 security guards stepped forward. Not aggressive. Not rough. Just procedural. Like this was routine. Like injustice had a system. Maya didn't argue. Didn't plead. Didn't look at anyone in the room. Because the truth was already clear. She hadn't just been slapped. She had been erased. No one noticed him. That was the point. While the room focused on Maya, on Logan, on the decision that had just rewritten the rules of right and wrong. He stood at the far end of the hallway. Still. Uninvolved. Watching. A tall man in a dark coat, hands resting loosely in his pockets. No badge. No urgency. No expression that gave anything away. Just presence. Sebastian Vale. He had seen everything. The shove. The threats. The moment Maya stepped forward without fear. And the moment everything broke. When Logan's hand struck her. Sebastian didn't move. Not because he didn't care. Because he had been asked not to. Years ago, a promise had been made. Let me live my life. Don't interfere unless I ask. And Sebastian Vale didn't break promises. But that didn't mean he wasn't listening. Watching. Calculating. His eyes followed the smallest details, the way Maya's hands moved to her stomach, the hesitation in the staff, the exact second Dr. Cole chose reputation over truth. He saw all of it. And he remembered. Not emotionally. Precisely. Because men like Sebastian didn't react in the moment. They acted after. Slowly, he reached into his coat and pulled out his phone. No rush. No tension. Just a simple movement. He typed 4 words. Paused. Then pressed send. That was it. No calls. No confrontation. No scene. But somewhere beyond that hospital, things had already started moving. Invisible. Irreversible. Sebastian slipped the phone back into his pocket and turned toward the exit. As he walked away, he didn't look back. He didn't need to. Because the moment Maya Carter had been touched, the outcome had already been decided. Logan Mercer just didn't know it yet. And by the time he did, it wouldn't be a confrontation. It would be a collapse. Logan Mercer left the hospital smiling. Not broadly. Not carelessly. But with the quiet satisfaction of a man who believed the situation had been handled exactly the way it should be. Efficiently. Decisively. In his world, resistance was temporary. Consequences were for other people. By the time he stepped outside, his assistant was already back at his side, speaking quickly, nervously, trying to recover control of a moment that had never really been his to manage. Your car is ready, sir. Logan adjusted his cufflinks. Composed again. Untouchable again. Of course it is, he replied. Because in his mind, nothing had changed. Behind him, the hospital doors closed. And just like that, Maya Carter's life had been reduced to a decision he barely remembered making. But the world outside didn't feel the same. Not to him. Not yet. It started small. Subtle. The kind of things powerful people ignore, until they can't. His phone buzzed once. He glanced at it. A missed call. Another. Then another. 3 calls from his financial advisor. Unusual. But not alarming. Logan dismissed it. By the time he reached the car, there were 5 more. Then 10. A message appeared. Urgent. Call me immediately. He frowned slightly. Annoyed. Not concerned. Because problems, in his experience, were things that could be solved with money, influence, or pressure. And Logan Mercer had all 3. He slid into the back seat. closed the door. And for a moment, everything was still under control. Or so he thought. Because somewhere, far beyond his reach, a system had already been activated. Not loud. Not visible. But precise. The kind of system that doesn't warn. Doesn't negotiate. Doesn't escalate slowly. It simply unfolds. And while Logan Mercer leaned back, already moving on from what he considered a minor inconvenience, the consequences of that single moment in the ICU had already begun finding him. It didn't hit all at once. That would have been easier to understand. Easier to fight. Instead, it unraveled. Piece by piece. Logan Mercer stepped into his private club that evening, the kind of place where his name carried weight before he even spoke. The lighting was low, the atmosphere controlled, the environment built for men like him, men who expected the world to stay exactly where they left it. He sat. Ordered. Waited. Untouched. But when he reached for his card, the first crack appeared. "Sir, it's been declined." The waiter's voice was careful. Too careful. Logan didn't look up at first. "Run it again." A pause. "I already have." Now he looked. Sharp. Irritated. "Then you're doing it wrong." But the waiter didn't move. Because something had already shifted. Logan pulled out his phone, dialing his bank with controlled impatience. No answer. He tried again. Voicemail. Then he noticed the notifications. Dozens of them. Emails. Missed calls. Messages stacking faster than he could process. His company stock, dropping. Fast. Accounts, flagged. Restricted. Frozen. His expression didn't change immediately. But something behind it did. A tightening. A recalculation. Because this wasn't normal. This wasn't how power behaved. Power protected itself. Power insulated. Power didn't disappear. Another message came through. His head of security read it first. And went still. No explanation. No warning. He simply stood up. And walked away. Left Logan sitting alone. That was when it became real. Not the money. Not the stock. The silence. The absence of loyalty. The sudden distance from people who had once stood close. Logan stood abruptly, dialing another number. Then another. Then another. Each call ended the same way. No answer. Or worse. Refusal. And for the first time in years, Logan Mercer wasn't in control. Because this wasn't a problem he could solve. It wasn't negotiation. It wasn't business. It was something else. Something colder. Something final. And somewhere in the background of it all, a truth he didn't yet understand was closing in on him. This wasn't loss. This was removal. The room was silent. Not the kind of silence that feels empty. The kind that feels controlled. Engineered. Logan Mercer was on his knees. Cold marble beneath him. Hands unsteady for the first time in years. The confidence that once defined him had thinned into something fragile, something reactive. The lights were low, focused only on one end of the long table. Where a man sat. Calm. Composed. Unmoved. Sebastian Vale. A cup of tea rested beside him, untouched for the last few minutes. His posture was relaxed, almost casual, as if this moment required no effort at all. Logan tried to speak first. Defaulting to what had always worked. "I have connections," he said quickly. "Government level. You don't understand who you're dealing with." Sebastian didn't respond immediately. He reached forward instead. And slid a tablet across the table. It stopped directly in front of Logan. The screen was already playing. Hospital footage. Clear. Undeniable. The shove. The threats. The moment Maya stepped in. And then. The slap. Logan's breath caught. Not from guilt. From recognition. Because for the first time, he was seeing it from the outside. Sebastian leaned forward slightly. You thought she was alone. His voice was quiet. Measured. But it carried more weight than anything Logan had said that day. You thought nobody would come. A pause. Then. She has me. No anger. No raised voice. Just truth. And that truth shifted everything in the room. A man stepped forward from the shadows, legal documents in hand. Sebastian didn't look away from Logan. Everything you own, he said calmly, is no longer yours. The words didn't need explanation. Because Logan could already feel it. The final piece of control. Slipping out of reach. The pen didn't feel like a weapon. But it was. Logan Mercer stared at it like it didn't belong in his hand. Like something so small couldn't possibly carry the weight of everything it was about to take from him. Sign. Sebastian Vale didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The documents were spread neatly across the table, pages of legal language, asset transfers, ownership dissolutions. Every company. Every property. Every account Logan had ever built his empire on. Already reduced to paper. Logan's hand trembled slightly. Not from fear. From disbelief. This is illegal, he muttered. You can't just. You already did, Sebastian replied calmly. Logan froze. Because he understood. Not the process. Not the system. But the message. This wasn't justice. This was equivalence. You take everything. You lose everything. The room remained still. No one rushed him. No one pressured him. Because time was no longer his. One by one. He signed. Each stroke of the pen stripped something away. The company. Gone. The accounts. Gone. The properties. Gone. Control. Gone. By the time he reached the final page, there was nothing left to protect. Sebastian nodded once. The documents were collected immediately. No celebration. No acknowledgement. Just completion. A bag was pulled over Logan's head before he could say another word. Hands guided him up, firm and precise. He didn't resist. Not because he accepted it. But because resistance no longer had value. The drive was silent. Short. When the bag was removed, cold rain hit his face instantly. He blinked, disoriented. Then looked up. Hospital lights. The same entrance. The same place where it had started. Where Maya Carter had stood. Alone. Logan staggered slightly, the weight of realization finally settling in. He wasn't being punished. He was being returned. Stripped of everything. To the exact moment he thought he had won. Morning arrived quietly. No tension. No urgency. Just light. Soft sunlight filtered through the wide hospital windows, settling gently across a private recovery suite that felt nothing like the ICU below. The air was warm. Still. Peaceful in a way that didn't need to be protected. Maya Carter sat upright in the bed. Her world, steady again. Not the same. But whole. In her arms. A new life. Small. Fragile. Breathing in soft, rhythmic patterns that felt stronger than anything the machines downstairs could produce. Her daughter slept against her chest, wrapped in warmth, untouched by everything that had come before. Maya looked down at her, and for the first time in a long time, she exhaled completely. No pressure. No fear. Just presence. Across the room, near the door, stood Sebastian Vale. Still. Composed. But different. The sharp edges that defined him in every other setting, softened. His attention rested on the child, quiet and unguarded, like he was seeing something that didn't exist in his world until now. Something worth more than power. More than control. She's perfect, Maya said softly. Sebastian nodded once. He didn't disagree. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Because nothing needed to be added. Everything that had been broken had been restored. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But completely. Outside the room, a soft squeaking sound passed down the hallway, the wheels of a mop bucket moving slowly across polished floors. Maya glanced up briefly. A figure passed by the open doorway. Head lowered. Movements careful. Deliberate. Dr. Harrison Cole. No longer chief. No longer in control. Just another man, walking quietly through consequences. He didn't look inside. And Maya didn't call out. She didn't need to. Because this moment, this piece, didn't belong to the past anymore. It belonged to her. Power is loud. It announces itself. It demands attention. It forces its way into rooms, into conversations, into decisions that were never meant to belong to it. It believes that volume equals control, that dominance equals permanence. But real power? Real power doesn't need to speak. It waits. Quietly. Patiently. And that's what Logan Mercer never understood. He believed power was something you showed. Something you used. Something you imposed on people who couldn't fight back. He thought winning meant being obeyed. He thought silence meant weakness. He thought consequences were optional. He was wrong. Because silence is not the absence of strength. It's the presence of restraint. And restraint is what makes power dangerous. Maya Carter never raised her voice. She didn't fight back. She didn't argue. She didn't need to. Because her strength was never in what she could do in the moment. It was in what stood behind her. Unseen. Unspoken. Unstoppable. And when that power finally moved, it didn't shout. It didn't warn. It didn't negotiate. It simply corrected everything. Not out of anger. But out of balance. Because the world has a way of remembering. Of keeping score in ways people don't see until it's too late. A single decision. A single moment. A single act of arrogance. Can unravel everything you've spent a lifetime building. Not slowly. Not fairly. But completely. And when it happens, there are no second chances. No negotiations. No explanations that matter. Just consequences. Precise. Final. Unavoidable. So the next time you think someone is powerless, the next time you assume silence means submission, the next time you believe you can act without consequence, remember this. The quietest person in the room is not always the weakest. Sometimes, they're just the one who hasn't decided to move yet. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button. Subscribe so you never miss a story and drop a comment telling us where in the world you're listening.